Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial for installing Anaconda on macOS. This tutorial is for the use of my Python related courses, and I'm recording it in early September 2018. And I'm hoping that this is going to have a life of at least a year. And so if you're in one of my courses, and I pointed you to this, I would say the following thing. I'm, I'm using the most recent version of the macOS operating system, and I'm using the most recent version of Anaconda. But by the time that you get to this, you might be using a slightly newer release of either of those two, and my advice is to use the newest available stuff, unless in my class I've warned you off of that. Okay, and that might mean that one of the dialogues is a little different, but don't be worrying about that. Use the new stuff. Okay. And for people who are not part of my class, just kind of run of the mill YouTubers, this is going to be pretty specific to my class. So you might not find this all that helpful, but you're welcome to stay. Okay, so here I am. I'm at anaconda.com, and I want to download the Anaconda software. And if I page down here a bit, if I scroll down, I see I've got three different versions, three things to click on. What I want is the left one. I want the Anaconda distribution. So I'm just going to click on download now. And now we're down to something that I recognize a little bit better. So we're at what? We're at anaconda.com/download/macOS or # macOS. Okay, so in my classes we use the Python 3 language. We're long past the Python 2. So we want this left part, Python 3.6 version. And instead of just clicking on the download, I can see it says we're either going to get a 64-bit graphical installer or a 64-bit command line installer. I want the graphical one. So I'm going to click on the top one. And I'm hoping, yeah. And I went down to my dock, and I can see that I'm downloading something big. I can see a progress bar down here at the bottom. So I think I'm fine. Now it looks like it's going to take a little while, so I'm going to pause the video, and I'll be back when that's done. So, okay, that seems to be done now. And in fact, I can see the graphical installer just jumping up and down under downloads. At least it was jumping up and down. So I'm going to open downloads. So I'm going to open a Finder and go to downloads. And I've got a lot of junk here, but among that, I've got this Anaconda DMG package. So I'm just going to double click that, and I get a dialog that popped up on my other monitor. So let me bring it here. So determine if the software can be installed. Continue. Welcome to the Anaconda 3 installer. Continue. This looks like the license, so I'll say continue. And maybe I have to go down to the bottom of the license. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to pull the bottom. Yeah, let's say continue, and now I choose to agree with the license. And now it says it's going to take up about 2.17 gigabytes. That sounds about right. Let's look at the install location. So change install location. I don't think I want to, but so install for me only, install for all users of this computer. Let's install for all users of this computer. Oh, it doesn't want to do that. Well, install for me only sounds like a great idea. So we'll do that. Install for me only, which was, I think, the default. So now we're back to the previous dialog. And I'm going to click on install. And it's going to prepare for installation, etc. So I don't want you to wait too long while things are moving along, so I'm going to pause until I've got something to show. Okay, and that took a while, so now we're on to the next of the screens in the dialog. So it wants to know whether we want to install the Visual Studio Code license, and the fact is I don't really use that, so I'm going to take a pass. You can certainly install it if you like. So then I'm going to choose continue, and the installation was completed successfully, and we're going to close. It says what do we want to do with the Anaconda 3 installer? Do we want to move it to the trash? And I'm a little short on disk space here, so I'm going to move it to the trash. Okay, so that's looking good so far. Okay, so let's close off that stuff. Let's close off the browser for right now. Okay, we have what we need. Let's go to applications and see what we have under Anaconda. And the one thing that we do have here is we have a program called Anaconda Navigator, and we're going to use that quite a bit. It's an alternative to working at the command line with Anaconda, and for most of us that's a real advantage. So I'm gonna double click on Anaconda Navigator and get that to fire up. And it's come up in another one of my monitors, so let me shrink a bit and bring it over here. And here's Anaconda Navigator, and what Anaconda Navigator is going to allow us to do that is the most important thing for us is to manage these virtual environments. Okay, so when we're doing Python development, plain old Python development, and when we're doing Django development in the course where we use the Django, it's very important that we have the right version of the Python interpreter and all the other packages that we're expecting to use in Django. That includes Django and some supporting infrastructure stuff. So what we're going to learn now is how to create and manipulate these virtual environments. Now, could we do this at the command line? Absolutely. Okay. Do I want to do it at the command line? No, I don't. Okay. So if you do want to work at the command line, there is this thing called the Anaconda. It's called the Conda cheat sheet. They call it always called Conda for short. It's called the Conda cheat sheet, and we'll take a look at that before we're done. Okay, so let's click on environment. And what we can see is that we've got one. It's called base or root. If we come over here and we roll down through it, it's got a lot of software. And this is the primary use of Anaconda, is to get you a coherent set of Python packages, and typically it's for plain old Python development and a lot of data science applications. So since I'm teaching at two iSchools, and I've got students who are going to be doing a lot of data science things potentially in their career, well, that's why I chose to use Anaconda. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here, but for a virtual environment, this is kind of beefy. It has a lot of things in it that we don't absolutely need. So what we're going to do is we're going to create, the first thing we're going to learn how to create is a virtual environment for plain old Python development. So how are we going to do that? Well, down at the bottom of this panel, while we're looking at these environments, there's a Create Plus icon. So let's click on that. And so we get a dialog up, and it wants to know the name. And when I name my environments, these get turned into directory names. I always put the underscore where the space would be. And this is a pretty common naming convention for Python parts, and this is a good practice. So I'm going to call this plain, all lowercase, plain underscore old Python development. Okay, so we've got the name for the environment set. What packages? Well, we want Python. You're always going to get a Python interpreter, and 3.6 is what we're looking for these days, and it's probably going to give us the newest stable version of 3.6, so that sounds good. We could just check a box here and get the packages related to R, but we're not really using R in either of these two courses that these tutorials are for, so we're going to leave that out. And then we're just going to go down and click on the Create button. And if you go down to the bottom over here on the right, you'll see the work that's going on to create the environment. Okay, and what it's really doing is it's pulling just the versions that it wants to pull of the packages from the repository from the Anaconda folks. Okay. And so let's see where we are. It looks like that's resolved. So let's oh, it's still going. Loading packages, all that kind of stuff. So I tell you what I'm going to do. Again, I don't like to make you wait, so I'm going to pause until I know I have that environment created. Okay, we're back. And this is what I always like about trying to support both Windows and Mac. What we have here is a list of packages that is being put into our environment that includes Python and the version that we want, 3.6.6, and a lot of other things. So when I created this, when I created the virtual environment for in Windows with Anaconda Navigator, I probably got about half this number of packages. So this will work just fine. What we need for the most part right now is the Python interpreter, and a lot of these other things are going to be. The question is, when are we going to have to come back here and add extra packages to our virtual environment? And I think what's going to happen is that we'll be coming back sooner on the Windows side than we will on the Mac side. Okay, and that's okay. That's just life when you're trying to support two platforms. Okay, so what can we do with this environment that we have? Well, if we just go over to the right side, there's a triangle, and we click on that, and we see we can do two things. We can open a terminal, which is going to be a command line interface, or we could open the Python interpreter in its conversational mode. So let's try open with Python first. So what we're just doing is we're firing up the Python interpreter. It's the one that we expected, 3.6.6. Okay, that's good. It's from Anaconda, so yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure that wasn't on our machine when it came from Apple. What could we do here? Well, of course, we could say print. Maybe something like "Hello World." And we could press return, and we'd see "Hello World." So when we open up a Python interpreter, what we get right away is kind of a conversational version of Python, where we can type in a line at a time, and you can type in multiple lines and all those things. Now, our textbooks in really both courses have quite a few pages in which they, if you follow along page by page, they have you typing in commands a line at a time. What I favor is what we're going to be doing for the most part is we're going to be using Pycharm, which of course is another installation tutorial, and we're going to be creating Python files, and we're going to be executing them, and we're not quite so much the line at a time stuff. But it's important to see that you can do it here, and you can do it here even before you've installed Pycharm. As soon as you have the Python interpreter, if you fire it up, you can do what you want. Now, to quit a Python interpreter, you call a function called quit, paren, and it's gone. And we can close it. So that looks good. Okay, now the other thing we can do, and there are some things that you might want to do, is you might want to open this development environment in a terminal window and a command line window. So let's click on Open Terminal, and we can see that we're at the command line. We're using the bash shell, and you can see in the parentheses this is the name of the environment that we're in, and this makes sense because we got into it directly from the plain old Python development environment. So what could we do here? Well, we could, for instance, use the Conda command line stuff. Well, how do you know the Conda command line stuff? Well, I told you there was a cheat sheet, didn't I? So I'm going to pull on the cheat sheet. This is the Anaconda cheat sheet. And this has a bunch of um, command line information of how to use Anaconda at the command line. So what are some of the things that we can do? Well, we can say conda env list. List the virtual environments available. Okay. Well, we can also say conda list, which will show us all the Python packages that are in the virtual environment that we're currently in our case, plain old Python development. And we can tell it to either activate or deactivate a virtual environment. Okay. Now, what's kind of interesting is it says here on the cheat sheet that on Linux and macOS that to activate a particular environment, we say source activate blah blah, and on Windows we say activate blah blah. And this is old. I don't think they've really updated that. In both environments now, I'm gonna move this away. In both environments now, we say conda activate and the name of the environment. So if we said conda activate base, it goes back to the base version. That has a lot of packages in it. Or we could say conda env list. Okay, and this gives us a list. So we've got base and we've got plain old Python development. Okay, that's all we've got so far. Maybe that'd be a little easier to read if our window were a little wider. Okay, that's good. So let's say conda activate plain old Python development. That was done ahead of time before we got into this window the last time. Old Python development. Okay, well that looks fine. So again, you can see in the parens the environment that we're in. And how do you get a list of the packages, the Python packages that are part of the current environment? Conda list. So conda list. And we can see here, interestingly, we've got Python 3.6.6 and all these kind of ancillary things, a lot of which we're not going to be using right off the bat, but kind of nice to have. Okay. Okay, so how do you get out of one of these? Oh, I just wanted to show you one other thing. Well, I'll show it to you a different way. So how do you close a terminal window? Well, with exit. Okay, and it says the process is completed, and now we want to do that. Now, you can, if you want to, you can go and to the base and open a terminal. Okay, and you can see that here, if we said conda list, okay, if we went back to the part of the alphabet, there's a lot of things in the base, but if we go back to Python, that was only 3.6.5. Okay, so we did actually get something different when we created our new environment. Okay, so somewhere here we've got this. And whenever we're in a virtual environment and we want to run the Python interpreter, it is called Python. And here we can see we're in 3.6.5. Okay, and we could do the same thing here. Here we could maybe say print 25 plus 5. So we can print a mathematical expression, and let's see what the answer is. Well, it's 30. Okay, so we're ready to quit here. Quit, paren, that's the name of a function we're going to learn. And we're back out in here, and we can say exit, and now we can close the window. All right. So that's about all that we want to do for the introduction to application development course. That's the only environment that we need right now, just this plain old Python development. Okay, so we have that, and we can see what's there. So if you're part of that class, you can leave us, or you can hang around just to see how things are done with Django. So let's say that you're you want to do development with Django, and in our class, in the web development with application frameworks, where we're learning Django, we're going to be using Django 2. Last semester we were using Django 1.11 point something or other, I think 1.11.9. And here we're already up to Django 2.1. And so that's what we're going to use. We're going to use sort of the latest version of Django 2. So could we do that with the environment played on Python development? No, it doesn't have the Django packages. There's one primary Django package and some ancillary Django packages. So we need to create a new environment. So let's go down to the bottom and click on the plus for create. And I'm going to call this Django 2 development. Okay, and this is going to be to differentiate it from the environments we had last semester. We want the Python 3.6. We're not interested in the R, and we're going to click on create. And again, you go down to the bottom right, and you're going to see a bunch of package fetching from the repository that's been organized by the good people at Anaconda. Okay, and sometimes it looks like it's done, and you go down and you click on that area down there, and it's not quite done. So it looks like it's done now, and what's interesting here is that we've got Python 3.6.6, and over here on the right hand side you see some packages that have this kind of blue blue arrow, and if you hover over it, it says update available. I don't go for those unless I've been told to go find some more recent version. What you usually get out of Anaconda is the most recent stable version of whatever we're talking about. So 3.6.6 is going to be just fine, both for our plain old Python development and and for our Django 2 development. So we're going to leave that there. We're not going to chase those arrows, okay? But I just want to point out that even though we claimed that we were going to be able to do Django, and we're going to have the Django 2, we don't have Django here. And how can we tell? Well, it's in alphabetical order, so Django would be DJ. It's not here. Well, if you look up at the top, there's a little box that controls the display that we have, and it's showing the installed Python packages. So let's click the drop down and say, okay, what's not installed, which is a longer list, and let's go look for Django. So it's in alphabetical order again, so we've got to get down to DJ. So we're going to make it. Okay, so we're in the D's, and the DI. Right after the end of the DI is DJ, Django. And let's see, web framework that encourages rapid development. We like that. 2.1. So anything in the 2s is fine. So 2.1 is a great version. Let's check that. As soon as we check it, down here on the right, there's an apply button. So we're going to click on apply, and then it's going to go sort of prefetch that stuff. We'll get to confirm it one more time before we're done. So let's click on apply. And now you'll see the fetching up here. And that happened pretty quickly. I like that. And so what's it bringing in? It's bringing in Django and these packages related to Python time zone, which I call Pytes. Other people may call PyTime Zone or PyTZ. Don't follow me unless you absolutely know that other people call it Pytes. And I'm going to click on apply. And again, down here at the bottom, it's going to do some fetching. Okay, and we're going to want that to resolve, right? And it looks like it's resolved, but we don't see Django here. And why don't we see Django in this list? And we could go look for it. It's take my word, it's not here, because it's in the we're showing the list of not installed. So let's flip that list again, do installed, and there's Django 2.1. Okay. And there's good old Pytes. World time zone definition. Definitions modern and historical. That's pretty neat. And we've got some other things that we're probably going to want. We've got SQLite for the database. We've got some interesting things. Okay, so we've got Django, and we've got some related packages. So that looks good. Okay, so what can we do with this? Well, again, with all of these, if you want to, you can go to Open Terminal or Open with Python. Python is just going to get us the Python 3.6.6. We've seen that. But let's do an Open Terminal, and you can see that it puts us automatically into the environment that we want. I like that. And so let's do a Anaconda list. And if we come down here, we'll see that we've got Django 2.1. That's what we wanted. And we've got Python 3.6.6. That's what we wanted too. Okay. So I'm going to say exit to get out of there and close that. And just before we go, I wanted to show you base. If we go back to base, we have all the I have all the data science packages in base. Okay, and we didn't put them into plain old Python development or Django 2 because we weren't ready for them yet. And we wanted to show that we could have sort of a lightweight environment there. But if you go up to base and you click on the triangle arrow, you can see in addition to Open Terminal and Open with Python, there's Open with IPython and Open with Jupyter Notebook. And why do we have these options? Well, one, they're supported by Anaconda Navigator, but two, we have the packages for that functionality in base. Okay, so if we had included that functionality in either Django 2 development or plain old Python development, while we're in Anaconda Navigator, we could pretty easily fire up any of those tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave these as they are, and we'll be using both of the environments that we created in the tutorial for installing Pycharm. And when we want to add additional packages or maybe change or upgrade packages, we could do it at the command line. Okay, so we don't really have to come back to Anaconda Navigator, but I'm a real Anaconda Navigator fan. So when I'm changing the packages in my environments, I always like to do it here. And this is what I recommend to you. Now, there's so many different ways that you can do these things that I don't want to make you timid about a little experimentation, especially if there's some encouragement from that for that in one of our textbooks. But this is the interface that I prefer. So that's it for installing Anaconda and using Anaconda Navigator. I'll see you soon in the tutorial for the installation of Pycharm. Bye-bye.